Hey everybody, Josh Collacchi here once again with RotoCurve, and we're here to talk about today's starting pitchers. It's a Friday, which means it's a big day in the industry. There's a lot of big contests. Be sure to check out all the sites and get your lineups in right away because there is a game at 4 o'clock, and it's not a part of the big slate, which means there's a 14-game slate tonight. A lot of pitchers, a lot of guys to get through. There's a lot of aces as well. So with all the teams traveling on Thursday, that means that there's a big Friday in store, so let's get right into all the aces that are pitching, find out who we like, who we don't like. And as always, want to talk about some cheap pitchers that we may like for today. The four aces that are starting on Friday are Max Scherzer against the San Francisco Giants, David Price against the New York Yankees, Dallas Keuchel against the Detroit Tigers, and Corey Kluber against the Minnesota Twins. Of these four, you guys may have guessed it, but the top guy I like is Corey Kluber against the Twins. He has the best matchup of these four aces. The struggles that the Twins have had against right-handed pitching are very documented so far this season. They have been hitting the ball very well since the All-Star break, but as a team, they do struggle against right-handed pitching. That is, of course, with the exception of Miguel Sano, who's just been absolutely on fire. The one thing I do like about Kluber is he's one of the top strikeout artists in baseball, and that makes him a good play against pretty much any team. But a team like the Twins, who strike out a lot against right-handed pitching, it makes for an excellent play. I want to talk about those other aces real quick because obviously Scherzer is one of the better pitchers in baseball, but he faces an excellent offense in the Giants, and I just can't really target a guy that costs that much against an offense that can hit the ball well. It's not worth that price, as it could be an even more of a risk to pick a guy like that because although he has the potential to score 40 points on DraftKings or over 20 on FanDuel or in the low teens for Fantasy Feud or in aces as well, you're going to need that. And for a price like that in a matchup against the Giants, I just can't justify taking them. The other guy is David Price against the Yankees. I will have some David Price exposure in tournaments simply because of his strikeout upside and the fact that the Yankees offense has been sputtering of late. But they do have a lot of guys that can hit left-handed pitching. They have a good right-handed lineup, and they're playing that game in where the not in the Yankee Stadium rather, but the thing is with the Yankees is they have a lot of guys that hit for power, and Price, when he's bad, he's really bad. We've seen it before. Guy throws a lot of strikes, and if he misses the plate by an inch or two, it should just turn into home run derby, and that's one thing we don't like to look at. So for me, I'm going to be using Price in tournaments today, not in cash game, because I do think he has that high strikeout upside. And of course, for the Blue Jays, pitching in that ballpark, things can kind of get out of hand. But I do like him on sites like FanDuel, where the one pitcher you're going to need a win is the big upside for a win. Toronto has been on fire, but I can't use him in cash simply because of that volatility in that ballpark against that offense. The next guy is Dallas Keuchel against the Tigers. Now, the Tigers' offense has been bad as well, but they have a lot of guys that hit left-handed pitching. And considering the price that Keuchel is, I'm not sure I can pay up for his lack of strikeout upside. Yes, he's a very good pitcher, very good ground ball pitcher, and he's a bona fide ace in the major leagues. But this is daily fantasy baseball. We need strikeouts. We need those points. So for a guy that costs just as much as a Kluber or a Price, I'd rather spend the money on guys that can get some more strikeouts rather than a ground ball pitcher, which really can't do too much for you in fantasy, especially at that price. Obviously, I talked about how I like Kluber, so I will be using Kluber a lot in my cash games, and I can't really find out a second starting pitcher right now. If I had to spend on two, it would be Kluber and David Price. But I'm going to look at some cheaper options today. So for 2-pitcher sites, 3-pitcher sites, I'll probably be going with Kluber and one of these cheap options at pitcher. First cheap guy I wanted to talk about, you've heard me talk about him before, is Robby Ray, left-handed pitcher for the Arizona Diamondbacks. He faces the Braves today. You've heard me talk about the fact that the Braves really struggle against left-handed pitching. They're one of the worst offenses in baseball against that side of the mound, hitting just .230 as a team. They have a WOBA of 281, which is third lowest in baseball, and they have a wretched isolated power rating of just 103. The only team that has a lesser isolated power rating against lefties is the Colorado Rockies, believe it or not. But the fact is the Braves don't have much power either way. They traded away some of their power bats. Freddie Freeman's still hurt. So they have a lot of guys that really can't hit the ball for power. Considering they're not hitting for average either, it makes for a nice matchup for a guy like Ray, who's been very good this season. And one thing with cheaper pitchers, guys like this, I look and see how they've done in good matchups. And one of the guys like Ray, he's performed well in these good matchups. So given the fact that he has one today, I think he can put up another good performance. The next guy I wanted to talk about, and the last guy I wanted to talk about actually for today's slate, there aren't many cheap options to look at, but this guy I think is in a good position to potentially be a top tournament play, especially at his price, and that's Chris Bassitt the Oakland Athletics, rather, starting pitcher against the Baltimore Orioles. Bassitt has improved in each of his last 6 starts in terms of fantasy points. He started off the season as a reliever, but he's gotten stronger, meaning that he can throw more pitches as the season has gone on. He's able to throw over 100 pitches. I believe he has it in 4 straight starts. And considering the fact that he's gotten better, it shows that fatigue is not wearing in on him. And that's a good thing to see. He has 23 strikeouts in his last 20 and 2/3 innings of work. And he faces an Orioles team today, which I just mentioned. They do hit the ball well against righties and lefties, but they strike out a lot as well. Look at guys like Chris Davis in the middle of that lineup. Adam Jones swings the bat a lot. So a guy like Bassitt, who has that strikeout upside, faces a team that strikes out a lot, can make for a decent GPP play. And once again, we just talked about how he's been doing his last couple of starts. He had 10 strikeouts in his last start, so it's one thing to look at. Bassitt will also be very low owned today, which makes him a solid tournament play. And I think the reason why he will be low owned is because of all the high-priced pitchers. A lot of people will want Kluber. They'll want some Scherzer, some David Price. They're not going to be thinking about mixing in cheaper guys like a Chris Bassitt, who doesn't have a great matchup on the surface, but if you dig deeper and see the other strikeout numbers, it makes for a solid play. Now, anytime you use cheap pitchers like Chris Bassitt and Robby Ray, what you can do with them is you can mix in some high-priced bats, and that's something we're going to need to do today because, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on the way you look at it, Coors Field is back in action today. The Padres play at Coors Field. The Rockies are back home, so it can change things a little bit, especially with that high over-under, as always expected. But the one thing we talk about with those expensive bats is you're going to need them on a site like Fantasy Feud because although there are 3 pitchers, the way the scoring is situated over there, the pitchers can't get much higher than 15, and that's if they throw a gem. Now, you can get 3 good ones, but if you spend a lot of money there, you're not going to get those bats that you need to put in for a good score. Now, the reason why I talk about Fantasy Feud is because there's still some overlay. We've been talking about it a lot this week, but one thing about them is with a lot of overlay, it comes with chances to win more money. I know a few nights ago they had just 300 people in a 500-person GPP, so be sure to take a look at that, take advantage of a big, lots of tournaments to choose from. There's lots of cash games that have a little bit of overlay, not too much, but those cheap GPPs you can really get in, potentially make some money. I know Benny and myself had some luck the other night, and so a lot of our RotoCurve members have won some money over in Fantasy Feud, so be sure to go check it out if you haven't yet. You can always sign up with the referral code COVE, and you get a $100 deposit bonus up to $500. And as always, if you sign up for a new site at RotoCurve, especially on Fantasy Feud, for a deposit over $50, you can email help@rotocurve.com, and we'll send you another $25 to use on that site. Just no strings attached. That pretty much wraps up our pitching segment for today. The last thing I wanted to mention is with 14 games all starting at the same time, especially towards the end of the summer, sometimes there's some storms. So be sure to check out Danielle's weather video because the one thing about that is if you get guys in weather situation, you might want to stay away from them because a goose egg for weather, you don't get those points back. So be sure to check that out along with the lineup page. We can definitely change some things. If there's a team like the Toronto Blue Jays that sit a lot of starters, maybe they'll be more attractive in terms of starting a pitcher against them. But the way I look at it is the opposite. If another team is benching a lot of their top players, maybe that pitcher becomes more of a play. So it's something to look at with the Vegas lines as well, which you can also see on RotoCurve's lineup page. So be sure to use everything to your advantage. A lot of the tools are updated almost every day. If they're not updated every day, they're updated every few days. So all the things you can use for information to make your lineups can be found daily. Just make sure to use everything to your advantage, and let's make some money on a Friday night. Have a good weekend and good luck tonight, everybody.